Welcome to the Fairmont Grand Del Mar and to our 2018 Teaching and Coaching Summit. We're really happy to have you here, and you made a great choice in making this a priority. My name is Todd Kiefer. I'm the president of our Southern California PGA section, and it's a great honor to be here with you. On behalf of our board, our teaching committee, our staff who's put a lot of energy into today, we know that you're going to enjoy the next couple days here at this great property. We're grateful to our generous sponsors, Travis Matthew and Blast Motion, to our inspiring instructors. I know Hank's going to speak here in just a minute, and to you for making this a priority to enhance your teaching and to grow as a professional. There's three things that are important on why we're here, that I think that why we're here anyway. First is to learn. Hopefully you get a chance to learn from each other, the instructors, and with this experience you have something to take away and grow as a profession. Number two is to engage. We hope that you find a mentor or you become a mentor. We hope that you engage with the instructors and that you have fun with each other. And that's really the third point, have fun. This is, we put a lot of effort and energy into our work every day. This is a great way to learn and a great environment. I can't think of a better place to have fun. And the person who really kind of helps put all this together is your director of golf here at the Grand Del Mar and our chief fun officer for the week, Mr. Sean Cox.
I'd like to welcome everybody here to the 2018 Teaching and Coaching Summit. Last year was our first annual event hosted up at Virginia Country Club in Long Beach, and Jamie Mulligan was by far the best host of any event we've had. And my goal this year was to kind of follow that model. We're going to move around throughout this 2 days. We're going to start here in the ballroom for 2 presentations, then we're going to go out in the event lawn for lunch, and then we're going to go up to our practice facility this afternoon for 2 more presentations. And then today, at the end of the day, we're also going to have a cocktail party at the Clubhouse Grill. So we're going to try to keep you moving around so we don't get too complacent in our seats. Each instructor is going to do a presentation. Hopefully we'll have some time for some questions and answers at the end. I'm going to walk around with a microphone near the end of the presentation. So the goal this year, last year we sent out a survey to those people that came. And one of the things that we saw as a teaching committee was to try to find information that we could bring home in our toolbox to help us with our instruction. So that's been kind of discussed with the people that are doing presentations through the 2 days, and that's my goal for you to walk away from this event, feeling like you learned something, and just like Todd said, to mingle with others and bring us together as a great group and body of the PGA here. So I'm going to introduce our first presenter today. As many of you know, Travis Matthew is our primary sponsor. Travis Matthew is a part of the Callaway family, and I reached out to Callaway last year and I asked them if they would send us one of their premier staff teaching instructors, and they obliged and sent us Hank Haney. Hank Haney, everybody knows who Hank Haney is. He has his own radio show on Sirius. He's basically taught people that won every major. He's taught over 200 tour professionals. He's he lives in Scottsdale. He came over here for this event. I'd like to welcome Hank Haney.
How are we doing? Thank you so much for having me. John, thanks for that nice introduction. It's my pleasure to be here with you. It's always fun for me to talk to a group of my peers. It's something that I've been doing for a long time. A few of you remind me of how long I've been doing this, because I saw a couple of you at breakfast and you told me I spoke at your PGA Business School, and I'm trying to think about when that might have been. It had to be like in the mid or early 80s. But I'll tell you what, I remember when I first went to PGA Business School myself, and I thought to myself, man, these instructors are not very good. And I thought, if I ever have the opportunity where anybody wants to hear anything that I have to say, I'm I'm gonna take that opportunity every time I can. So through the years, I've obviously spoken at a lot of different seminars, and I've always enjoyed it. It's my favorite thing to do is to share with my peers, and hopefully there's something that I'll tell you today that'll help you with your teaching, with your instruction, make it more fun for you, make you better at it, make it more profitable for you, whatever it is. But I always start off, like every time I do a teaching seminar, and I'm always quick to point out to everyone that, you know, what I teach it's just the best way that I know how. And I assume that everybody who teaches golf, and I know all of you teach whatever it is you teach, it's the best that you know how to. You know, I don't think there's really a right way. I don't think there's a wrong way. You know, everybody does their best, and you know, sometimes you have better results, sometimes you don't. We all struggle from time to time. But you know what? Teaching has been so good to me. It's been such a big part of my life. I mean, I've had so many great opportunities in golf, things that I've done, places that I've been, players that I've coached, and it's all been because of teaching, to be honest with you. That was the whole thing, and it's always been my passion. I've been involved in every aspect of the golf business. I mean, I still own golf academies and public golf courses, but it's really been teaching that's been the big thing that's fueled, you know, my career. And my career's kind of gone full circle. I mean, when you first start off teaching, and I started off teaching when I was in college. I went to the University of Tulsa. I majored in education. I knew when I got done with school that, you know, I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a coach. I was from the Chicago area. I moved back to Chicago. I'll never forget this. I applied for a job as an instructor at this one golf course, and the guy said, well, after talking to me, he says, you know, we don't have a job for you as an instructor, but if you're interested in being caddy master, he said, you know, we can maybe give you that job. And I said, you know what? I don't think I'm going to be caddy master. I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to be a golf coach. That's what I'm going to be. And I just tried to pursue that as best I could. I had the opportunity to work with the John Jacobs Golf Schools. It was the opportunity of a lifetime. And to me, John Jacobs is, he just passed away last year, but he's the greatest golf instructor the world's ever seen. In my estimation, that's me. He's influenced a lot of people over the years, a lot of top teachers, and he was an incredible mentor, incredible person to learn from. Todd mentioned mentoring and finding somebody to mentor you, and I think the one thing you see with instruction is when you see very good instructors, they always have a group of instructors kind of underneath them like this. It's like a family tree. And if you go look down at all the top or better known instructors today, they've all been influenced by somebody, you know, in the past that helped them. But that was a great opportunity for me. I moved to Pinehurst Hotel and Country Club to be their director of instruction there for the golf schools. I was 23 years old and the director of instruction at the biggest golf resort in the world. And that's where I met Mark O'Meara. I was on the practice tee one day, and we had the Hall of Fame tournament there. Mark had just missed the cut. He was 124th on the money list, and he asked me to watch him hit some balls. And you know, I've got a good friend of mine who's a great public speaker. His name's Dan Clark, and he says, you know, one moment in time can change you forever. And that was that one moment in time for me, definitely in my career, when I met Mark O'Meara, and he asked me to help him. Geez, I mean, 2 years later, he finished second on the money list on the PGA Tour. And all of a sudden, you know, everybody thought, man, Hank Haney must know something. And I felt like I knew a lot about the backswing. You know, when I look back, I probably didn't know too much about the downswing. I mean, I didn't give any refunds, but you know, you do the best you can. But when I look back and I think about everything that's happened to me in golf, it's all because that one day when I met Mark O'Meara. I mean, it really that just made my whole career. Without that, then you know, everything else wouldn't have happened. But to be a better instructor, to be a great instructor, I think there's certain things that you have to have. And one of them is you have to be passionate. I mean, that is first and foremost. You have to be passionate about what it is you're doing. I think everybody that's great at anything has that passion for their profession, their hobby, whatever it is. And I've always been very passionate about golf. I mean, I just love golf. I love everything about the the game. I love learning about it. I tried to study as much as I could. I watched as many better known teachers as I could. When I was at Pinehurst, all the top instructors at the time would come through Pinehurst. I mentioned I work with John Jacobs, but the Golf Digest schools used to come there. And I watched Bob Toski, and I watched Jim Flick, and I watched Peter Costas, and Davis Love III, and Jack Lumpkin. All these great instructors would come there, and I would sit there and I would observe. And having that opportunity, I think really helped my career. Because obviously, you have to have the passion, but you have to have knowledge. And I think, anything you can do to learn, like coming to these seminars and reading, studying, there's so many avenues today with the internet and all the different videos you can watch and so on and so forth. But you have a great opportunity to learn, and the more you learn, the better off you're going to be. Now, obviously, once you have that knowledge, you have to be able to put it to use. And sometimes when I look at teaching today, I think it's changed so much. I mean, I look at myself. I guess I'm a little old school, a little simpler in my approach. I teach the masses of people now. I mean, my career is, like I said, it's kind of gone full circle. When I was at Pinehurst, I first started teaching like beginners, like everybody does when they teach. And then the next thing you know, I'm teaching touring pros, and I help 200 touring pros. When you first teach the beginners, you're thinking, geez, I wish I had somebody with some talent. I mean, they're so bad. Golf's a hard game. And then you teach touring pros for 30 years like I did, and you think, man, let me have those beginners back. I can't wait to get those beginners back, because teaching touring pros is a challenge within it in itself. But for 30 years, I taught touring pros, and now I'm back teaching the masses of golfers. I don't teach on a practice tee anymore. I don't teach individual lessons, but I do a lot of clinics. I did clinics last year for over 15,000 people. I talk to I have 200,000 listeners a week on my radio show. I've got an email list of passionate golfers that get my Haney University videos. Almost 1.9 million email addresses of people that we bombard with our instructional tips, and I talk to 150,000 people every day on Twitter when I give them tips. So I feel like I teach more golf than I've ever taught, but I do it a different way, and it's always been fun. But the thing that I've always started off with in my instructions, I've always tried to focus on having a plan. To me, that's the most important thing you can do. You have to be able to have a plan. I did the same thing when I started with Mark O'Meara. When I stood behind him, he asked me to watch his balls, and it probably seemed like forever. But finally, he turned back and he said, "Hank, are you going to say anything?" And I said, "Well, I'm thinking about what your plan needs to be." I said, "Why don't we go inside? We'll sit down. We'll have a Coke, and we'll talk about it." And he said, "Hank," I don't have time to sit down. He said, "I don't have time to go talk about anything." He says, if I don't make the next 2 cuts, he said, I'm not even going to be on the PGA Tour. He said, just tell me something. I said, well, let's go talk about what your plan should be. And we did. We went inside. We talked about it. And he decided, hey, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna work. I'm gonna try working with Hank Haney. And next thing you know, like I said, he finished second on the money list 2 years later. But it all started with that plan. It did the same thing when Tiger Woods called me. I mean, obviously, when you get that call, it's the opportunity of a lifetime if you're a coach and Tiger Woods calls you and asks you to help him. And I started the exact same way. He said, Hank, what do you think about my game? And then probably the biggest understatement of all time, I said, I think your game's pretty good. And he said, what do you think I need to do to get better? And I said, looking from the outside, looking in, it looks like you clearly have a great knowledge of the game and the swing, and obviously you're an incredible player, but it's hard for me to tell what your plan is. And I said, I think you need to have a better plan, an A through Z plan that takes you from where you are to the best that you could possibly be. And I pretty much just left it at that. And then the next day, I flew down to Orlando. I met him at his house, and I've known Tiger for many years. He was waiting at the end of the driveway for me when I pulled up. had his clubs on a cart and was all ready to go. And the first thing he did is he told me 3 things that I taught that he didn't agree with. And I thought to myself, man, this is gonna be an incredible learning experience. That's what I thought. I don't know how long this is gonna last, but this is gonna be an incredible experience because this guy's different. And greatness is often different. But you know, it always starts to me with having a plan. And being able to make a plan comes from being able to diagnose. You have to be able to diagnose. You have to diagnose your situation. If you're giving a golf lesson, you got to be able to diagnose what that student is doing. But you can't make a plan without having that diagnostic skills. And that's a skill set that you have to have. And that's one of the things that I think, you know, when I look at teaching today, and I watch other teachers, and I hear about, you know, there's so many great teachers, to be honest with you. I mean, so many great teachers. And I hear them talk, and oftentimes, I mean, I'm in awe of what they know. Like, I mean, there are so many teachers today that just know so much about everything. I mean, it's like it just blows my mind how much they know. But one thing that I always kind of think back on is you know, do they have a plan? Do they know how to formulate a plan? They have all these bits and pieces, but can they put it all together? And you have that plan, but you got to be able to communicate that plan. And you got to get your point across. You got to be able to get people to do it. I remember when, you know, I stopped coaching Tiger, and you know, all of a sudden there were new coaches come on. They had all the answers. You know, they knew everything he was supposed to do and everything that he wasn't doing. And within a month of coaching him, they were quoted as saying, you know, you can't get this guy to listen to anything. Well, it's a little harder than it looks. That was what Butch Harmon told me when I started with Tiger. He said, Hank, it's harder than it looks. It's a tough team to be on. And, you know, he was right. You have to be able to have the ability to communicate. Whatever it is you're coaching, whatever it is you're teaching, whatever your style is, you got to be able to communicate. You know, they say people only hear 10% of what you say. So what that tells me is well, I better repeat everything at least 10 times. Because if they only get 10% each time, I got to say it at least 10 times. So I find myself saying the same thing over and over and over a lot. You got to communicate the plan, you got to motivate the plan, and everybody's different. You know, some people get motivated just by a pat on the back. And other times you have to motivate by, you know, giving people a kick in the rear. I remember when I had my show, the Haney Project, and I had Ray Romano on my show. And Ray's a very dear friend of mine, but he's a character. He's a little negative, okay? And the first day we did our show, he's just so negative on every single thing. And I'm like, geez, I said, Ray, I mean, you're a little negative. He said, Hank, he said, that's how I made all my money. And when you think about it, like comedians, what they do is comedians, like, they make fun of themselves, they make fun of everybody, that's their deal. And I said, Ray, that doesn't work so good in golf. But I'm cheering him on, and then I thought, you know, this isn't probably going to work too good. It's just not, I'm not getting anywhere with this. I got to try a different approach. And then I thought to myself, how did he get like this? And I thought, maybe, I'm just going to take a wild guess, but maybe his father was really tough on him. So I said, all right, I'm going to take a different approach. I'm going to start yelling at him. So I started yelling at him. And the more I yelled at him, the better he did. And I'm yelling at him, and he's doing better. I'm yelling at him more, he's doing better. At the end of the day, he's done a lot better, and he said to my producer, he said, man, he said, Hank's really yelling at me a lot. He said, but I think he really likes me. and I thought to myself, you know, that's part of coaching. You have to be able to figure out how you're gonna motivate your student, how you're gonna get them to listen. I remember the first time I taught Tiger Woods, it was right before Bay Hill, 2004 Bay Hill. I worked with him one day, and he goes to the tournament, and he finished like 34th. And he calls me up and said, you know, can you come back down to Orlando? And the next Monday, I'm back down to Orlando. And we get out on the practice tee, and he's hitting, I'm standing behind him, and I'm like, he's blowing me off. I mean, he's not paying any attention to what I'm saying, he's not listening to me, he's not doing anything. And I'm like, man, I guess this is like to show me that, you know, that I'm the reason he finished 34th or something, which, you know, he wasn't going great before I showed up, but, you know, one day, anyway, you know, I'm just sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, okay, you know, is this the way this is going to be? And then I said to him, I said, you know, just point blank, I said, Tiger, I don't know what it is you got going on right now. I said, but I can tell you what. I said, I know what you need to do. I know what your plan needs to be. And the sooner we get working on it, the better. But this whole deal you got going on right now, blowing me off, this is going to get us nowhere. And I'm not sure if somebody had ever said that to him before. But that's one of the ways that as a coach, see, there's a difference between teaching and coaching. And I think a lot of times coaches, you know, there's different ways that they can be effective. And some people know a lot, but they can't get their point across. You gotta be able to motivate that message, whatever it is that you've got. You gotta be able to get that point across and get that student to really understand it. Now, obviously, you have to have great students, and I've had great students. But I feel like as a coach, it's your responsibility to make your students better. I mean, I can't tell you how many times over the years I have heard, you know, instructors that work for me, and they'd say, well, this kid won't listen, or this guy won't listen, or I can't get this guy to do this, or I can't get this guy to do that. And I'm thinking, well, I mean, you're the coach. That's your job. It's not how much you know, it's how you get that point across. You've got to be able to get that point across. And obviously, when you have some students that you know, maybe are easier than others, but I never looked at it like that. I always looked at it like every student is just a student. They're students and they're not students. That's it. I mean, there's no good students, there's no bad students. They're just all students. Some are easier than others, but at the end of the day, they're just all students. Because the number one thing you have to do as a coach is you always have to accept responsibility. That is the number one thing you have to do, is accept responsibility. I mean, I think back to a statement that the great Alabama football coach, Paul Bear Bryant, said. He said, you know, when we do good, he said it's us. He said, and when we do great, it's all them. It's all the players. And when we do bad, it's all me. It's all my responsibility. And that's really what it's like in coaching and coaching golf. I mean, you know, there's only two kinds of coaches. We all know that. And only two kinds. I mean, those that have been fired and those that are going to be fired. You know, that's the only kind there are. But you always have to be able to accept responsibility for whatever the situation is. And I think those are some of the key points with being a coach. Now, when I look at teaching golf in particular, there are three things that I always talk about. Three very, very simple things. But I applied these same basic things to every student I've ever taught. All 200 touring pros, you know, the amateurs I've taught. But let's remember, I mean, the average handicap for a male golfer is like 16 and a half. The average handicap for a female golfer is 26 and a half. Okay, and let's put that in perspective. There's 24 million golfers in the United States, and only 17% of them even have handicaps. So what is the real handicap? I mean, what's the handicap of all these people that don't have a handicap? I mean, I don't think people understand how bad golfers are. I mean, I really don't. I mean, it's like, go to Top Golf and watch. Like people love Top Golf. One of the reasons they love Top Golf is because there's always at least 3 levels at Top Golf. And as long as you're on the 2nd or 3rd level, you're guaranteed to get it airborne because it falls off the 3rd floor down to the ground. Those people at Top Golf actually think they're getting the ball in the air. Nobody wants to hit on the 1st floor because they just hit grounders. That's what most people do. And notice out there at Top Golf, how many golf balls fly more than 150 yards? Very rare. It's a hard game. It's hard for everybody. And so much of coaching today and so much of teaching today, to me, is geared towards the better players. I mean, I taught better players for over 30 years. But back in the day when I started teaching, I mentioned John Jacobs and Bob Toski and Jim Flick, coaching was dominated by the teachers, Golf Digest instructors. and Golf Magazine instructors, and they were the ones who taught the average player to play the game. Nowadays, teaching is dominated by touring pro teachers. That's it. All the teachers you know about, all the teachers you hear about, the ones with the reputations, the ones that are on the list, you know, all these lists that they have. All of those teachers, they're all touring pro teachers. And a lot of what they talk about is all geared towards better players. And I hear it all, and like I said, I'm in awe of the knowledge, I'm in awe of a lot of things that they say, but I look at it and I think, who are you teaching? I mean, that is like the less than 1% of the players that can really understand what it is. I mean, I don't even understand what they're saying. I don't know how the 16 handicap, the 26 handicap could understand what they're saying. So to me, there's a genius I think in making things simple. When I hear about this guy's just so brilliant, I'm like, okay, he's got a lot of big words, he's got a lot of big phrases, but sometimes genius is in making something very difficult simple. So my simple approach to helping everybody who plays, doesn't matter if it's the best player or the worst player, there are 3 things that I work on. Number 1 is eliminating penalty strokes. When you swing and you swing 1 time, you want to lie 1. It's very simple. You want to lie 1. You don't want to hit it out of bounds. Now you're hitting your 3rd shot. You don't want to hit it in the water. Now you got to take a penalty. You're hitting again. If it's a stroke and distance penalty, I count that as 2 penalty shots. See, you have to eliminate penalty shots. That is the number 1 goal. Number 1. I have a very simple. After teaching golf, taught golf for 42 years, I have a very simple definition of a good tee shot. A good tee shot is defined by any one you can find. If you can locate it, it's not that bad. Okay, it's decent. Okay, it's decent. I remember a friend of mine years ago played in a pro-am at the Byron Nelson Classic, and he played with Fulton Allen. You remember Fulton Allen? He was a really funny guy. He'd get a little hot under the collar on the golf course, but he was a really funny guy. And my friend teed off on the first hole. I'll never forget this. And my friend kind of hits one down there, down the fairway, but he didn't hit it very solid. And Fulton goes, nice shot. My friend goes, I kind of hit it on the heel. I didn't really hit it very solid. He starts saying that whole deal like everybody does, And Fulton Allen looked at me. He said, Pardsy. He called him Pardsy. He said, Pardsy, let me tell you something. He said, today we're writing down scores. We're not painting pictures. And you know what? That is so much what golf is about, having better misses. So number 1 on the list is eliminating penalty shots. Number 2 is eliminating what I call 2 chips. 2 chips, 2 pitches, 2 sand shots. Anytime you're in close proximity to the green, you have to be able to get the ball on the green in 1 shot. So you eliminate 2 chips. The 3rd thing is you eliminate 3 putts. Amateur golfers are so consumed with making putts. I mean, they worry so much about the line of the putt. Are they going to make this putt? First off, they're not going to make very many putts. I go do like outings all the time, and I watch people play. I never see anybody make a putt. I see them line them up all the time, but I never see them. But I see them 3-putt all the time, all the time. So you eliminate 3 putts, and here's how I tell people to keep score. Obviously, you write your score down, whatever you had on the hole. Add up your score at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, add up your penalty shots, your 2 chips, and your 3 putts. And remember, a lost ball or a stroke and distance penalty is a 2-shot penalty. You add up your penalty shots, 2 chips, and 3 putts, and you subtract it from your score, and you get your coulda, woulda, shoulda score. And for most cases, even at a professional level, that will usually be the difference between winning and not winning. Even when I coached Tiger Woods, he won 45% of his tournaments, which, to put that in perspective, Jack Nicklaus won 12% for his career. But Steve Williams was his caddy at the time. And Steve Williams used to keep statistics, and his statistics said that if Tiger didn't 3-putt, he would have won 85% of the time. So when he would look, he would get done, Tiger would get done, he'd say, I didn't make enough putts. Until I was blue in the face, I would always say this. I said, Tiger, you don't have to make any putts. If you just don't 3-putt, they cannot beat you. They absolutely cannot beat you. I remember when we won the U.S. Open. just right here in Torrey Pines. And he got, you know, and he won on the broken leg, his last major, 2008. He got done, he said, I putted really good. And I didn't say anything. He looked at me, and he said, what, you didn't think I putted good? I said, yeah, you putted good. I said, you made some good putting. You made that bomb on 13, you had that bomb on 18. I said, but you know, you three-putted number 10 from 20 feet. I said, so when you three-putt 10 from 20 feet, and you make a 70-foot bomb on 13, at the end of the day, it's 4 putts in 2 holes. That's what it equals. And of course, his response was F you, but but he got the point. Okay, I think he got the point, and he paid more attention, you know, to the 3 putts. So those are my 3 keys: eliminating penalty shots, eliminating 2 chips, eliminating your penalty shots. The first thing I always start with is the penalty shots, because that's what most people have trouble with, the big miss. You know, they have the bad shots, and usually for most people who play the game, obviously their biggest miss comes with a driver. Now, the driver is obviously the straightest face club in the gotta find a golf ball. If I got one. So the driver is the straightest face club in your bag. Can you imagine that? No, you have a golf ball. Clearly, I wasn't planning on playing today. Anyway, we have a simulator. Do we have a golf ball? We'll work on that. All right. Anyway, we don't need one. Okay, there. I'll borrow one. That was pretty good. Against the light, without my glasses. Not a bad catch. So anyway, obviously the driver's the straightest face club in the bag. Everybody knows that. Mine has 9 degrees of loft. When you contact the golf ball, if it's open or closed, the club face relative to the path of the swing, it's your club that's going to curve the most. And this is the one that most people have their biggest miss with. They take the penalty shots with the driver. So when I'm coaching, when I'm teaching, the number one thing that I always pay attention to is this right here, the golf ball. I hear people talk on and on and on about all these different subjects about golf. And you know, a big thing today is all the, you know, ground forces and this and that, force play, and you know, it's all great stuff. But I watch and I listen, and I wait until they mention the golf ball. It's fairly important. Matter of fact, it's the only thing that matters. John Jacobs used to say, golf is what the ball does. The only thing that matters is the golf ball. That is the only thing that matters. And when you hit it, it either goes to the right, it goes to the left. If it doesn't go straight, it either goes too high or too low if it doesn't go the right trajectory. I mean, it either curves one way or curves the other. You know, there's not 4 choices. There's only 3. Golf is what the ball does, and you have to be able to start. To me, if you want to know how to make a plan, and this is how I always am able to achieve ball flight results. Ball flight results, corrections on ball flight results, is I always start with the golf ball. First and foremost, what is the golf ball doing? I'll have people call my radio show, and they'll, you know, the first thing they do is they tell me everything they're doing wrong. Hank, I'm not transferring my weight, I'm falling back on my right foot, my right elbow's coming out, my left knee's doing this, my hip's doing this, my feet are doing this, my shoulders are doing this, and then I have to interrupt. Excuse me, what does your ball do? Where do you miss? Oh, I hit it everywhere. For example, there's no correction for everyone. Okay? I mean, because anything you do to help somebody with a ball that's going to the right is going to obviously make a left miss worse. And anything you do to fix somebody that's hitting a left is you're going to make their right miss worse. So you have to pick one or the other, but you've got to fix the biggest miss. You analyze what is their big miss. What is their bad shot? What is the shot that gives them the most trouble? Maybe what is the shot that gives them the penalty shots? Usually it's with the drive. And when you think about it, I mean, everybody who plays, they either hit the ball to the right or they hit the ball to the left. I mean, you either slice or you hook. That's the way it is. I mean, there's not, once again, there's not three different ball flight chains. If you miss, you slice or you hook. One of those two things. So I analyze what the golf ball's doing. That's number one. First and foremost, I ask the people on the radio, what is your ball doing? And then what I try to do is I try to ascertain what is happening at impact. This is the pattern that I go through on every single lesson, and it absolutely, positively guarantees you success. A lot of my teaching is quick, short teaching. Give somebody something on the radio show that they can work on. Give somebody something on Twitter that they can work on. Last 2 weeks ago, or a week ago, I can't remember now. I've been in so many different places in the last 2 weeks, but I was at Brentwood Country Club in LA, and had a fabulous day with the Jewish Federation of Greater Los Angeles, and I had 100 people there. And I stood on the first tee, and I watched 100 people, and gave 100 people lessons. And what that means is they come on the first tee, and I ask them, when you miss, where's your most likely miss? And I try to get to the bottom of that. Then I watch them make one practice swing. And then out of that one practice swing, I ascertain what I think their big miss is. And then I give them some corrections to try to fix that big miss. And that to me is, frankly, it's a lot closer to the teaching that most of you do than it is touring pro teaching. I don't know how many times, and I'm not against this, because we do it at my academies, and I'm not saying it's bad, but when you go hooking up all this equipment, you know, the force plates and put all the dots on you and do all this, I'm like, man, I had 100 people. I got 2 or 3 minutes with each person, and I got to give them something, and I'm going to be judged by how that golf ball flies off the first tee. I could try to sell them a whole, bag of goods. I could tell them, hey, I know you just sent it over there in the parking lot, but boy, it looks so much better, and your setup looks so good. And if you'll just practice that for a couple of months, you'll really be good. But that person's not going to be committed. They're going to be committed if their golf ball does something different than what it did before. If they were hitting it too low and I got them to hit it higher, I immediately have their attention. If they're slicing it and I got them to hook it, I immediately have their attention. I had a lot of people like that. 90% of people who play golf slice. And that's probably a low number, to be honest with you. You take away the people that slice with a very strong grip, and what do you think the percentage is of people that actually slice the golf? It's very high. Most people slice the golf ball. That's my question all the time when I ask about an instructor. They said, this guy's a great instructor. I said, can he fix a slice? Because if you can't fix a slice, you can't teach like we have to teach. Because that's what people do. Better players tend to hook. So you might be really good at fixing a hook, but you better be good at fixing a slice, because that's what most people do. Now, preferably, you can do them all. I always say, if there's a road you take to playing better golf, you go from slicing to hooking to good golf. You go from slicing to hooking to learning to fade it, and you get to great golf. That's the path that you take. But to me, it starts with analyzing, diagnosing, looking at the ball. What's the ball doing? Then we look at what's happening at impact. So when I look at impact, there are a few different things that I look at, and in probably no particular order, because it all starts happening at once. But I would say the first thing that catches my eye, and this has always been the case, the first thing that catches my eye is how much ground is somebody hitting. Now, I think this comes from the fact that I built my own facilities, and at my original facility, Haney Golf Ranch, that we built in Dallas, I literally laid the sod in the practice tee. So when people were out there and they're ripping up my sod, it personally hurt. It was like I had pins in a voodoo doll. It was killing me when they were ripping out my brand new sod. Or we had a barn that we converted into our indoor teaching center, and I I would be downstairs hitting on a rainy day and hit out of the stalls out into the range, and I could hear, the upstairs was where the video was, and I could hear these guys pounding the ground upstairs. It was giving me a headache. I said, I'd always say to one of my instructors, can you go up there and figure out who it is that's hitting on that second spot up there and go shallow him out a little bit, because he's pounding the ground so hard. It's got to be hurting his arms too. I mean, he's hitting the ground so hard. So I look at how much ground they're in. That's clearly one of the first things I look at. It gives me an idea of the angle that the club is coming down into the ball. The next thing that I look at when I'm diagnosing is the relationship between the swing path and the club face. Is the club face open or closed relative to the path? And that's going to obviously determine which way the ball is curved. You know, and there's so much discussion about this today. Like I hear all this deal about how now with TrackMan, we know exactly why the ball's going where it's going. And I'm like, we had to have a TrackMan to figure that out? I mean, like I don't. And the point that everybody makes is they go back to the ball flight laws, which John Jacobs talked about the ball flight laws too, and he's always misquoted on the ball flight laws. And people act like John Jacobs didn't even know what made the ball hook or slice. I mean, it's like it's so not true. Because John said that if the club face is square to the path, then the path determines where the ball starts, which is true. But that's hardly ever the case. So you don't really have that situation. It doesn't take much experience in teaching. I remember the first lessons I ever taught, and I watched a guy swing, and his swing was like this, and the ball started over there to the right, and I thought, geez, whatever that was they were talking about at that business school with the path determining where the ball starts, that clearly is not the case, because the guy just had a divot over here like this, and I saw his swing go over like that, and that ball started over there. Well, obviously the club face has more influence. It's one of the most misdiagnosed things in golf when you look at the impact, and you still hear it today, but not as much. Like I was listening to the Golf Channel yesterday, watching it and listening, and Gary Woodland hit one shot to the left. He played a great round on Sunday at the tournament in Korea, but he had this one iron shot a little to the left, and of course the commentator goes, he came over the top, and I'm like, okay, he hit the outside part of the ball is what he did. He hit the outside part, but he wasn't over the top. I mean, I teach people, you teach people, we've taught them for years, that come over the top. And those people hit pulls and they hit slices. And they don't hit the shots that Gary Woodland hits. So he actually came in, and the club face got closed, and he hit the outside part of the ball. So I look at the point of contact on the golf ball. Where the golf ball starts is primarily determined by where you contact the ball with the club. Path has some influence, but most of it is your point of contact on the ball. I look at the point of contact on the club face in terms of, are you hitting on the toe, are you hitting on the heel, are you hitting too high or too low on the club face? And obviously with woods, hybrids, when you've got a rounded face, if you hit out on the toe, you have that gear effect, or you hit on the heel, you have a gear effect, and it can skew the curvature of the shot. So you look at where your contact on the ball. I pay a lot of attention to where the bottom of the swing is. Do you hit at the ball? Do you hit behind the ball? Do you hit in front of the ball? It's one of the key questions that I ask. It's like when people call in on my radio show, and they will say, Hank, I pull the ball to the left. Okay, so my first thing is I've got to determine is he pulling it with the club face, or is he pulling it with the path of his swing? Which one is it? And then I said, do you tend to slice your driver? And what I'm asking him is when I ask him that question, I'm trying to, because if he slices his driver, there's a very good chance his path is across to the left. So the pulls could be path pulls. So I ask him, do you slice your driver? No, I don't slice my driver. Okay, well, I'm still not convinced at that answer. Okay, so I'm going to ask him another question. What's your handicap? And he said, I'm an 18 handicap. Okay, good chance he slices his driver. Okay, regardless of what he says. Because some people call it a push. Other people refer to it as a fade. Other people affectionately refer to it as their power fade, okay? But when I look at it, what I see is a slice, okay? That's a slice. That's what that is. That's a slice. So if he says he's an 18 handicap, there's a good chance that it is a slice and a pull with the path of the swing. But if he says he's a 4 handicap, or a 2 handicap, or a 3 handicap, then those are not players that typically come too much over the top, because we've all seen it. And higher handicap players tend to come this way, and lower handicap players tend to do just the opposite. They come this way, and then their hands cross over. They'll hit the outside part of the ball, and they'll pull it that way. So I'll ask those series of questions to try to get an idea of what his swing looks like. Another question might be, how much ground? When you hit with your irons, do you tend to hit too deep into the ground? If he says yes, then I know he's steep. If he says no, doesn't mean he's not. He still could be coming down steep, and at the same time he's raising up, which a lot of people do. But it still gives me a little bit of an idea of where he might be. But one key question I'll ask him is, where's the bottom of your swing? Do you tend to hit behind the ball, or do you tend to hit in front of the ball? If he doesn't hit deep, and he tends to hit behind the ball, and when you hit behind the ball, you may not hit the ground, you may miss the ground, but you may catch it on the upswing. So you're either going to hit fat or thin shots. If you hit the ground, you hit it fat. If you miss the ground, you catch on the upswing, you hit it thin. If you hit your irons fat and thin, then that tells me he's probably coming too much from the inside. And that tells me that pull is going to be caused by the club face. And that's how I get to the bottom of it. Once I've figured that out, then I know, okay, he's club face pulling it, he's coming too much from the inside, and then I have a series of corrections that goes from there. But it all starts with the diagnosis. If you don't make a correct diagnosis, you cannot make a correction that is correct. It's the most important thing you can do. Forget about everything else. If you could just get flawless at diagnosing what is the golf ball doing and why is it doing that. And it goes like this. What's the ball doing? What's happening at impact to cause the golf ball to do what it's doing? And then, what is happening during the swing with the golf club? What is the golf club doing during the swing to cause that particular impact? And then all you have to do is fix what the club's doing. All you have to do to get literally instant results is to change what the golf club is doing. If you give them something that changes what the golf club is doing, then you're going to change that impact. And when you change that impact, you're going to change the golf ball. You're going to change the flight of the golf ball. That's the pattern. Most people do just the opposite. They start off with something that they don't like in their swing. Like people call me up and say, Hank, my swing is too long. I'm like, okay, well, John Daly's swing was long. I mean, Phil Mickelson's had a long swing his whole career. He's done pretty good. How is that your biggest problem? I'm like, and I tell people, I said, let's reverse this. What if you called in and said, Hank, I'm slicing the ball to the right. I'm pulling my short irons. I'm slicing the ball with my driver. I'm pulling my short irons. I'm hitting shots off the toe. And the first thing I come with is, well, your swing's probably too long. I mean, there's no substance to that at all. That does not change an angle. That does not change impact. It's just a preference. It's a preference somebody has. They don't like long-looking swings. I mean, I might not be my favorite either, but that doesn't mean that that's the problem. The problem is what's happening with the ball. The problem is what's happening at impact, what the club's doing to the ball, and what the club is doing during the swing. So that's what I look. When I see the person swing, it's like I don't even see them at first. I just see what the club's doing. Because if I can figure out what the club's doing, and then get the club to do something different, I've immediately changed the golf ball. So to me, there are a few things that I look for in the swing. Very, very simple. The number one thing for me after we get past the setup, and I don't think probably I would, teach anything that would be much different than what anybody else would teach in the setup. I try to get the students' arms in front of their body, not pressed out here, not too far back here. Bend forward from your hips, arms hanging down, so you've got some freedom to swing the golf club. There's your setup. I teach a fairly neutral grip. It's not real strong. Probably, slightly on the weaker side than what a lot of people teach today, or have taught, but not much. I mean, it doesn't mean I don't strengthen some people's grips. Doesn't mean the first thing I wouldn't tell you would be to strengthen your grip. But I think most people teach very similar with the setup. And it doesn't mean that I'm always putting them in an absolutely neutral position. Sometimes if they need it, I'll turn them a little bit too much one way or another, just to create a correction, because I'm always going to fix that golf ball, no matter what. I'm always going to fix the golf ball. But after we get past the setup, there are just two basic things that I really work on mostly, to be honest with you. One of them is the plane of the swing, or the angle. I read today now, there is no such thing as swing plane. I mean, some instructors say there's no swing plane. There doesn't, I don't know what those instructors call it. I'm just talking about the angle of the club, To me, this is upright, and to me, this is flat. Okay? If you call it something else, whatever it is you call it, it's fine with me. I don't care. But I call this upright, I call this flat. See, there are two elements to every swing, and they're both directly related to the golf ball and where it is when you're hitting it. And the first thing is that the ball's to the side of you. And because it's to the side of you, when you swing, you have a certain amount of around in the backswing. You go around, going back, you come back to straight when you get to the ball, you come around as you come through. So every golf swing has a certain amount of around. Shorter players have more around, and taller players have less. But everybody has a certain amount of around. And everyone has a certain amount of up and down. And that's because the golf ball is not only to the side of you, but it's down on the ground. So when you swing the club, you go up in the backswing, you come back down to the ball, you come up again in the through swing. Every golf swing has a certain amount of around, a certain amount of up and down. I break it down quite simply. Either you have too much up and down, or not enough around, or you have too much around and not enough up and down. To me, those are the only ways it can be. Now, obviously, how much up and down you have is somewhat determined by your posture. If you bend over a lot more like this, you get more angle from your body, so you're going to need more around with your arms. If you have a more upright posture like this, and then you're going to need a more upright hand and arm swing. But everyone, to me, is either swinging too upright or too flat if they're not swinging on the correct plane for them. And to me, it starts with the angle of the club shaft. That's the angle that dictates the plane of the swing. But I look and I see there are many, many different planes, but I look for the planes in the backswing and the downswing all being above but parallel to the original angle of the shaft. That's my vision of where it should be. And quite simply, either are or you aren't. Now, what the swing plane does for you, to my way of thinking, is when you swing on the correct plane or angle for you, or whatever you call this thing that the club's doing here, you give yourself your best chance to naturally square the club face. It doesn't guarantee it, but it gives you your best chance. Upright swings will always have a tendency to block the club face open, always. Flat swings will always have a tendency to close the club face too much. So in general, people who slice tend to swing too upright, too much up and down, not enough around, especially coming into the golf ball. And people who hook tend to come in too flat, and the club face closes too rapidly. The second thing that the swing plane does for you is, to me, it determines to a great extent how much ground you hit. So people who swing upright, it's action and reaction. So if you go up too much, you're going to hit down too much. You dig too deep in the ground with your irons. Conversely, if you don't go up enough, you won't come down enough. I always joke with people and say, this is one of the laws of gravity. What doesn't go up won't come back down. If you don't go up enough, you won't come down enough. If you go up too much, you come down too much. If you go up the right amount, you got a better chance of coming down the right amount. The club just barely hitting the ground or taking a slight dip. And then the third thing that the swing plane does for you, to me, is it helps you to hit the ball in the center of the face. Upright swings tend to hit off the toe, flat swings tend to hit off the heel. How much you swing the golf club around behind you determines to the greatest extent how much it will swing out in front of you. You see action, reaction. Action, reaction. Action, reaction. So if you have a very flat swing, your tendency would be to hit more toward the heel because the club will tend to swing out too much. If you have a very upright swing, you tend to hit towards the toe. And then after that, the next thing that I pay a lot of attention to is really just the timing of the swing. Things have to be timed correctly. Your hands, arms, body have to be working together. John Jacobs used to describe the golf swing as nothing more than 2 turns and a swish. You turn as you go back, you turn as you go through, and in between those 2 turns, you make a swish. Well, the louder the swish, the better, but you have to get the body and the hands and arms to work together. Here's 2 turns and a swish, but clearly they're not working together. My hands and arms are moving, but the body's not moving in conjunction with it. And the timing's off. So if the hands and arms are going fast, and I always want them going fast, because distance to me is the most important aspect in the game of golf. It determines your potential. But if your hands and arms are going fast, and your body's not moving, you're going to tend to close the club face like this. And I'll show people, look where your body is, look where the club is. Now look where your body is, now look where the club is. And now the club face squares itself up because the body moves. If your body's too slow, the club's going to tend to close. If your body's too fast, then you leave the club open and it never catches up. And those are just the basic things that I work on. But I'm always trying to implement a ball flight change. And as soon as you do that, then you got it. It's like I have so many people that think, Hank, I have sliced my whole life. I'm like, oh my God, your whole life you sliced? I mean, seriously. I mean, I did an article for Golf Digest. It was called "Cure Your Slice in 5 Minutes." And I had 50. I literally they lined Matt Mooney from Golf Digest came. They lined up 50 players on the driving range. 50 people who sliced. Not one of them had ever had a lesson from me. 50 people on the range that sliced. And within 5 minutes, every single person hooked the golf ball. And I have people say, Hank, I've sliced my whole life. I'm like, that can't possibly be correct. I mean, you need to take a lesson, but you need to take a good lesson. Because you know what they say? They said, I've taken lessons. Really? You haven't taken a lesson from me. But the problem is people take lessons, but they don't get results. They don't get ball flight results. You have to affect a ball flight change. You can't just sell them on everything, that they're doing that's going to come to fruition in a month or two. They don't have that kind of patience. There are a few mistakes that I see that instructors make. And try not to make these mistakes. Number one is they tend to talk way too much. I mean, like way too much. When I hear instructors just talking, and I remember when I was a young instructor, I did the same thing. I mean, I'd have somebody come for a lesson, and my goal was to show that student everything I knew about golf in 30 minutes. And I never shut up. And now I think, like, why? I go observe some of, our younger teachers that teach, and I'm looking at I'm like, Steve, tell him not to talk so much. Just fix the ball. He doesn't need to talk all the time. Why is he talking so much? He's driving me crazy. Let the guy hit some balls. Coach him. Motivate him. But don't, This is not a contest to show how much you know. First off, you have to realize no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. That's the most important thing in coaching. You have to show your student how much you care. And you don't do that by necessarily talking so much. All this knowledge that you have, it'll come across. But the first thing you have to do is you have to get that student committed and engaged. And how are you going to get them committed and engaged? You got to fix their ball flight. So that's one mistake that I see a lot. Obviously, misdiagnosing is another mistake. If you misdiagnose, you're off. You have no chance. I mean, if you think the ball's going over there because of this, but it's going over there because of that, you're in trouble. It's not happening. And the lesson's over. Finished. Now you gotta go back and retrace your steps, and next thing you know, you've told the student two things that are totally opposite of one another, and that student's gone. They're gone. So you have to take as much time as you can to diagnose. And if that means it seems like forever, like when I first watched Marco Mira, then that's the way it is. But take your time. And then you make a plan. You've got a step-by-step plan that takes you from where you are to where you eventually think you can get this student. I've had that plan with every student I've ever taught. And I knew that all I had to do was just repeat the formula. That's all I do, just repeat the formula. The formula has worked. It worked to the extent that every high school kid I ever had that came to me for lessons on a regular basis got a college scholarship. It worked because I took kids from junior golf to USGA titles. It worked when I worked with Marco Mira, and he was 124th on the Mayan list, and 2 years ago he was inducted in the World Golf Hall of Fame. All you have to do is have a formula, and you just repeat the formula over and over and over. You don't always have to reinvent the wheel. A lot of times people try to reinvent the wheel. I mean, you just don't have to. I tell my instructors all the time the same thing. I said, guys, you can try to blaze a trail. You can try to figure this out for yourself. You can do all that. Or you know what you can do? You can just do what I do. Because if you do what I do, you will get the same results I get. It's a simple concept, and it works every single time. It's called role modeling, and it never doesn't work. And that's why when Todd was speaking, when we started off this morning, he said, about mentoring, getting somebody to mentor you and everything. I mean, that is such an important thing. Find somebody that's good at whatever they're doing, do what they do, you'll get the same results they get. It's a real simple concept. But a lot of times instructors talk too much, they don't make a plan, they're not patient enough to execute the plan. That's another key thing that I think, one thing I have is an unlimited amount of patience. Unlimited. Even when I'm yelling at Ray Romano, and he thinks, well, Hank's getting a little upset. And one day we were filming, and he said, he made a joke. He said, Hank's got to go to some anger management classes after helping me for a week. But really, it was all on purpose, because I'm trying to get him to listen. But you have to have that plan. You got to motivate that plan. You got to be patient with that plan. And a lot of instructors aren't. They give up. They don't deliver the information that they have with confidence. And that's something, obviously confidence comes when you have good results, but I see this a lot. Like I'll be at my golf school, and one of my teachers will say, Hank, would you take a look at this guy? And I go, all right, I'll be happy to. I mean, tell me what he's doing. He said, well, he's doing this and this and this. And I said, all right. Well, what have you been getting him to do? And he says, I'm getting him to do this and this and this. All right, that sounds good. So I walk up to him and I watch him, and he has the diagnosis just right. He's got the correction just right, but he can't get him to do it. So I just walk up there and I get him to do it. But the difference is I walk up there with confidence. There's no hemming, there's no hawing, there's no, I think this is what you do, and there's no, I don't think this is what you need to do. I know this is what you need to do. And if it doesn't work, we just keep doing it. And we do it, and we do it, because sometimes it takes time. You have to be patient. No, no good plan can't have the ability to be changed. But a lot of people change way too quick. And the next thing you know, they're on to this, they're on to this, they're on to this, and they're just all over the place. And when that happens, then you've lost a student. So those are my key points to help you guys out. I think we got time for a couple questions. Sean's got a microphone. Anything I can help you with in particular?
This live now? Yep. Thank you, Sean. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So, Hank, you said something really cool that I liked. You said, you start off slicing, and then you learn to hook it,
Yeah.
and then you learn to fade it. I was recently in a conversation, someone was telling me that they didn't want to work with anybody who works the ball from left to right, or they don't want to work with anybody that aims left at the target. This is a famous instructor, you probably know what I'm talking about, but because they'll eventually hurt their back.
No, eventually what?
Hurt their back.
Oh, okay.
So can you talk about that a little bit? Do you believe that?
I don't know about that. I mean, the whole back thing, I mean, there's so much that, of course, this whole back thing really became prevalent now with Tiger. Nobody really knows how he hurt his back. You can't look at, everybody just assumes it's like he hit so many balls and he hurt his back. Okay, or he did this and he hurt his back. But you don't know for sure. It's like when Tiger said, he'd say, oh, I've hit millions of balls. I'm like, millions? Okay, let's just get the calculator out for a second. Okay, that means at least more than one, not at least 2 million. One day I did this, and I thought, you'd have had to hit 5,000 balls a day, every day your whole life. You haven't hit millions of balls. I mean, he exaggerates everything. Okay? So, I'm just telling you, it's just the way, just when somebody says something like that, I've hit millions of balls. All right, let's do the math on that real quick. It's not possible. You haven't hit millions of balls. Okay, I get it, you've hit a lot of balls, you haven't hit millions of balls. But there's a lot of other things. What are you doing on your workouts? What's your body, issues that you might have had, were you jumping out of airplanes with the Navy SEALs? I mean, who knows if it came because of this. So I don't think that, a lot of this protecting the back stuff I just think we're overdoing it a little bit. I mean, now, in my way of thinking, it's always been like this. Guys that finish more like this with a bigger C, then they're more prone to have back problems. Tiger did have that problem with his swing. When he'd come in with a driver, his eyes would look back here, like 3 feet behind the ball. And that's why one of the things that I worked on with him was oftentimes we would work on kind of like an Annika Sorenstam kind of finish where he would look through more like this, and that takes pressure off your back, obviously. And more of a Jimmy Ballard kind of looks through the golf ball. But I don't think that means that you can't hit different shots. I mean, you can still hit shots and have a swing that's not going to hurt your back. I think that's a little bit of an over-exaggeration there on that. To me, you want to be able to hit at the highest level. You want to be able to hit 9 shots, and this was the whole basis for my instruction with Tiger. The whole basis. You want to hit 9 shots. A straight ball, low, medium, and high, a right to left shot, a ball that starts to the right of your target and draws back to your target but not past your target. Low, medium, and high. And then a ball that starts left of the target, fading back to the target, low, medium, and high. Okay, those are the 9 shots. When you can play those 9 shots, then you're at the ultimate position. Because now you can play in any conditions, you can play off any kind of lies, and you can be aggressive and conservative at the same time. So when the pin's on the right-hand side of the green, you hit the ball at the center of the green, you work it to the pin. If the pin's on the left side of the green, you hit it to the center of the green, you work it at the pin. If you're somebody that can only draw the golf ball, then you need to stay away from the right pins when you have 7-iron on down in your hand. It's not the worst situation in the world. That might only happen a few times around, but it doesn't allow that person to be as aggressive as a player can be if he can hit all these shots. The other thing that being able to work the ball does is it allows you to have some corrections in your swing. You can correct it, and you can diagnose it. So if you're hitting the ball to the right, you're cutting it, fading it, whatever, and you know how to draw it, then you go work on your draw. Sam Snead said it best. They asked him, they said, what did you do when you were slicing the ball? He said, well, when I'm slicing the ball, I'd play with it on the course because that's all I could do. Then I went to the range and I'd hook it for a half hour. And what'd you do when you were hooking? He said, well, I played with it on the course and I went to the range and I faded it for a half hour. I tried to get his swing back to neutral. And that's the whole thing that I did with Tiger, being able to hit all those different shots. That was it. And he would call me up and say, Hank, I'm hitting my fades good, but I can't draw the ball. I'm drawing the ball great, but I can't fade the ball. I got my low shots down, but I can't get the ball up. I'm hitting the high fades, but I can't hit the low fades. Whatever it was, everybody who plays the game has some shot that they can't play. And that's also the point of diagnosis that I use. Let's say I watch somebody and they hit a couple good shots. But I got to give them a lesson. I got to find something to help them with. I'm trying to figure out what shot can't they play. What's their weakness? What shot is their worst shot? Are they better at, everybody who plays is either better at fading it or better at drawing it. Everybody who plays is either better at hitting it up or better at hitting it down. There are no exceptions. And even if that changes from day to day like it did with Tiger. But to me, you want to be able to play all those shots. That's the ultimate. Now, for the people that we're teaching mostly, I mean, they slice the ball. So get them to hook it, and you lower their handicap right away. But at some point, you're gonna have too much of a hook, which is better than too much of a slice. Because the people that hook, I mean, they complain just as much as the people that slice. They call my show all the time. They're like, I hate that hook. It's the worst thing in the world. This shot drives me crazy. It's uncontrollable. I can't stand this shot. I'd do anything to fix this shot. And then I ask them, what's your handicap? I'm a 2. And I think, how many people listening would love to be a 2 handicap? That terrible shot you're hitting to the left. Yeah. Okay, hold on.
Hank, sort of a two-part question. You know, given that the downswing's 0.2 of a second, a quarter of a second long, and you know the importance of transition, but also in a lot of circles now, you're seeing that really a lot of people trying to get you to shell that club out a lot. I just wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Well, you know, to me, you can shell it out too much. You can steepen it too much. You know, it's obviously a trend in teaching today is to you see all these trends that happen. I mean, like I used to enjoy going to the Masters every year to see what everybody's teaching this year. And every year we change. Like, okay, what's the new deal this year? And you know, like every year I go there teaching the same thing. And every year we have some new deal. You know, now it's shelled out. But you see guys rehearsing that, like Justin Rose rehearses it a lot. But it doesn't look like he does that in the swing. So Tiger always said the same thing. He said, you know, there's a big difference between feel and real. So if you're going to create a difference in your swing, you have to exaggerate it. You know, you got to exaggerate it. But you know, to me, anything can be overdone. You know, you can bend your wrist too much this way. You can bend your wrist too much this way. You can you know go too much this way. You can go too much this way. You know, but in general, what you want to do is you always want to work in the opposite direction of whatever it is you're currently doing as your miss. What is your miss? Do the opposite. And that's what I always try to do. But I'm very hands-on with my instruction. Like when I coach, teach, I mean, I hold on to people, I show them, I move them around. I think you have to be. But I actually, you know, when I see somebody that's rehearsing and they're rehearsing an exaggeration, you know, oftentimes I think that's a pretty good thing. But at some point, those rehearsals have to be tempered, and you have to modify them. You can't keep rehearsing that big of an exaggeration because at some point you're going to start doing that. You know, and then you're going to start hitting the ball, you know, with the opposite miss than the one you had. And hopefully they realize that, and then they know, okay, I've gone too far. You know, it's like I used to hear it all the time when people say, you know, so-and-so just needs to fade the ball. I'm like, all right, that's great. Well, he was drawing it too much, so now he needs to fade it. Announcers would say this on TV, he needs to fade the ball. Okay, that's great. But if you fade it long enough, it's going to turn into a slice. And then you have to go back to drawing it. So you've got to be able to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You know? And that's the only way you can achieve a neutral situation. One more?
Hi, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
I was one of the people there 25 years ago at business school when you were teaching.
Oh my God.
It's really
I'm
great.
getting old.
Yeah, me too.
That's all right. I don't mind.
So my question is, why do you think that 99% of, well, I teach mostly beginners to intermediate.
Right.
So 99% of them do the same thing. 99% outside in, over the top, you know, bad grip, not rotating the club face, not shifting weight, timing's too fast,
Yeah.
slicing. Why do you think the majority of people do that? And I mean, I know that I have ways of getting them to adjust, mostly with smaller swings.
Right.
But
And
why?
it's
why
good
do
to
you
start off with smaller swings and then work your way up. It's good to start off with slower swings and then work your way up from there.
Right.
Yeah. If you can't do it small, you can't do it big. If you can't do it slow, you can't do it fast. If you can't do it on the practice tee, you're not going to do it on the golf course. If you can't do it on the course when you're practicing, you're not going to do it in the tournament. You know, it's one step at a time. So that's a good approach.
So why do you think the majority
Well, why
of
people,
human
I mean,
beings do
here's the
that?
thing, I mean, when people first start and hold on to the club, you never see somebody or rarely, do they ever hold on with too strong of a grip. Usually their immediate point is they kind of put their thumb straight down the shaft. So right away, that's gonna be hard for people to square the club face from that grip position. And they don't have a concept of being able to square their lead hand. So they start with that weak of a grip. The first ball they hit is going to go to the right, and when it goes to the right, they're immediately going to adjust their swing to the left. Whether it's going to be just a subconscious adjustment, and that's why a lot of times when I fix somebody who's slicing, even though the path is way off, one of the things that I always work at it in two different directions. I'll try to get them to hit the ball where they're swinging. So if they're swinging to the left, if I can get them to hit it to the left, then it's easier to fix the path of the swing after that. Now, I'm usually trying to do them both at the same time, but at the very least, I want to get them to hit the ball where they're swinging. So if they swing left, get them to hit it left. If you get somebody swinging left, but they're swinging left like this versus swinging left like this, you can get a lot different result. One of them was steep and to the left, the other one was around, and even though it was to the left, I had some rotation that would naturally help the club face to square. So because the ball's on the ground, that's the difficult thing for people. I'll have people take practice swings with the club up off the ground like this. I'll have them swing back and through and explain to them, I want you to swing as if the ball's on a high tee. If the tee was this high in golf, you wouldn't have anybody that went straight up and down. But the ball's on the ground. And a lot of times with amateur golfers, they don't pay attention to the lie that they have either. So that's why with beginners or people, anybody that is steep with their swing or slices, I'll always tee the ball up for them. Because when I tee the ball up for them, I'm making it easier for them to swing more around and still get down to the ball. But when those beginners put the ball down on the ground, and let's face it, most practice tees don't have much grass. I mean, you know, it used to be there, but that was before everybody showed up and started swinging down too steep. So now there's no grass. So they throw the ball down on a terrible lie, and then they just dig it out. And they keep digging and digging and digging. So they're too steep with their swing because the transition is tough from here down to here. Their grip is generally too weak to start with. And as soon as they have one shot that slices to the right, they have a history. It's like when people say, oh, yeah, I've never played, so I'm gonna take lessons before I develop any bad habits. You hit one shot and you got bad habits. Yeah, that first shot slices to the right, you got your habit right there. And it'll be the same thing you have to correct after that. But anyways, I don't know, you know, unless you're writing a research paper, I don't know what you're gonna do with that information you just asked for. You know what I'm saying? You just have to fix it. And you're fixing it, so you got a good approach and you're doing the right thing, and you know, don't obsess over like when people ask me like, you know, like a big question I get all the time, because I've done a lot of research. How do people get the yips? Like, what difference does it make? We gotta figure a way to work around it. Let's not waste our, you know, they haven't figured out how people get it yet. So, you know, yeah, with the slice, just fix the slice. That's it. You guys are great. Thank you so much for having me.
We're gonna take a 10-minute break, not a 15, 10-minute. If we could have everybody back in their seats in 10 minutes, please.
Break.
Said a couple things, and I'm like, it's Scott England talking right there. Like, just a little angry or something.